Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 32 breakdown for the Paris finals that happened this past weekend. There are over 900 players, 10 rounds of Swiss day 1 into a top 32 best of 3 cut day 2 that we see here today. So a couple of things before we get started. First, if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe. It does help out a lot. Also, if you want any of the deck lists from this video or any other ones that we didn't go over in general, you can make sure to check them out on my website, Eggman Events. We've got a bunch of OP08 events, and we'll continue with OP08.5 when we get more starter decks, so make sure to check that out if you haven't already. And I also do want to thank Limitless and also Pecco for helping get these lists out as well. I would not be able to make this video without them, so I really do appreciate it. Also, all of these deck lists were hand input from photos, which did, one, take a lot of time, but two, there is a chance of some inaccuracies from just hand inputting it. So if there are any deck lists that are incorrect, please let me know. It would probably be ratios. I think all the leaders are correct, but if there's any differences, please let me know and I'll update that as soon as possible. But and if you guys appreciate that, please hit that like button. It did take quite a long time to input 32 decks by pictures. So anyways, that aside, again, this was run on October 12th and 13th by Pecco. 900 players approximately. I don't know the exact number, but it is over 900. 10 rounds of Swiss best of 1 top 32 cut, best of 3, and then of the top 32 we did see 10 of the Star Deck 13 Luffy, 5 Nami with one of them winning the event, 4 copies of Lucci, 3 copies of Star Deck 14 Luffy, 3 copies of Bonney, 3 copies of OP05 Luffy, and then singletons of Zoro, Yamato, Sabo, and Pudding. So honestly, like, it's what we've been seeing. I've been saying that the rule of thumb is that 75% of the meta, or at least of a top cut, has been both Luffy's, as in the Star Deck 14 Luffy, Star Deck 13 Luffy, Nami, Lucci, and Bonney, and that's held true for this one. I think Purple Luffy's gone a little bit more popular, and we'll see a little bit more as well with the Star Decks as well, but it's been showing up pretty good. I think it does have a good matchup into a lot of the top 5, but anything outside of that, it does have a bit of a rough matchup. And then a good amount of singletons too, of again, Zoro, Yamato, Sabo, and Pudding, which I'll be honest, Yamato and Sabo, I would be very surprised that these are topping in general. These were not on my list of leaders I thought were able to do so, and it's I think a really big accomplishment for those as well. So I don't have the full leader breakdown. I don't think that's ever going to happen, unfortunately, but I think it's been generally what we've been seeing. Nothing too new for this, and we've got like 2 more weeks of this meta as well until we get to the starter decks, but I think this is pretty safe for what we've been seeing as well. So that's kind of my breakdown. We're going to go over the top placing leader for each one of these leaders, starting off with their first place list. So this is Elcaro's version of Nami. And Nami's continued to be pretty popular in this meta. Since OP07, it had a real resurgence with the inclusion of the Kuja Pirate cards, right? From this build specifically, the big card, I know it's just a single copy of a card, right? But it's this Mr. One Daz Bones. This was something that I saw get more popular on the rank ladder this past week as well. So having a single copy of this, it's just a card that says draw 2 and trash 1, but there are a lot of situations where one, when there's more Namis that exist in the field, you need to have more ways to be proactive about your card draw. So that and the Mr. Hanger really helps you with that as well. And then just the fact that sometimes you just need 2 more cards out of your deck, right? Even if it's 5 Dawn to do so, it's like a worse peel-off, right? But peel-off's like the best card in our deck half the time, so that's kind of understood for it. But other than that, nothing too wild for it. We do have a couple more triggers since we are playing 2 copies of Femur, as well as just for the draw 1 trigger, and the deck is generally what we've been seeing for it. So big congratulations to Elcaro for the big win with this Nami, and congrats at Worlds later this competitive year as well. So there it is. Next up, we got Andy as our runner-up, playing the Rob Lucci with it. And we do have the standard new ads from OP08, which is the Jack as well as the Who's Who. This being CP9 in its type means that you are able to get it pretty searchable with the Spandom, which is really nice for you there too. I will say that Jack's been pretty strong for it. Isho's been hit or miss for a lot of people. I think this has been more of a tech choice. It does do really well into like the Black Yellow Luffy. The fact that you're an 8-drop 9k, you can pressure their 9k leader without any Dawn investments, really great. And the card too comes up a lot, so I think that helps the matchup, and it can be good against stuff like Nami if they're not paying attention to cards in hand. And then we also are running the Finger Pistol, which I haven't been seeing this card as much. This was kind of like a more common card at the end of OP07, with the idea that this was great for helping you get some good trades into stuff like Bonney. This was also a card that could help you get out of a Basil Hawkins, since it's a way to be able to remove a body without having to invest the Dawn for it. I've also noticed that a lot of the Lucci lists have been dropping the Brooks. They've been a little bit more common in the Star Deck 14 Luffys, but and we've been seeing an uptick of the Helmeppo and then no Surus for a lot of these Rob Luccis as well, which I thought was a little bit interesting. I know that Suru's not as searchable as the Khalifa or the Who's Who, but it is still I do like, I personally feel like I need like the security blanket of running like 1 or 2, but it's interesting to see a lot with 1 or less from most of these lists that topped. And then 3 whole copies of Spandine. This does enable a really gross play with your Gekomori a lot of the time. I've seen most people kind of cap out at 2, but you'll see at the other Rob Luccis that top this event, a lot of them are running 3, which I thought was really interesting too. So that it does have some good abilities. We are running a couple more, I think, Cypher Pool cards than usual, since we are running 17 copies of CP9, 5 copies of CP0, and then additional 4 copies of the CP9. So I think the deck is in a really good spot, though. Obviously, one of the strongest decks, if not the strongest deck in this format. And congratulations to Andy for their second place finish there. Next up, we've got Star Deck 14 Luffy. This is Daniel's version of the deck, and this is still one of my favorite decks in this format, OP08. I've been looking forward a little bit to 8.5 a lot, but if I was to go to an event, it'd probably be Luffy right now. I think he's got a lot of strong abilities for him as well. And just the fact that he kind of changes how the game works a little bit. You get out of a lot of destruction effects for free just by making your cards cost 1 more. We do have a good amount of interesting ads, including Laboon, which has been really popular, I think, as of late, as an additional card for decks like this. Luffy not having any cost reduction as part of his leader does make him a little bit trickier to get some removal in general, but being able to have Laboon is like a worse copy of Kuzan sometimes, but sometimes it's a better copy of Kuzan, since you can use cards like Gekomoria, you can play it out, use Laboon's effect to give something -4, and then you can use the Jack that you played on the field last turn to get rid of a bigger card. So there's some reasons to play it that are better than Kuzan. Obviously, Kuzan on 4 is still one of the best plays for this deck, but I think Laboon is in a really good spot. Other than that, we are playing like a single copy of Borsalino. We're still running the Ishos, as mentioned, in like the Rob Lucci builds. We're playing our Sanjis as well, being able to use this to get some removal, and the rest of our just kind of staple cards. So I still like Luffy a lot. We do have some new cards in OPO 8.5, specifically the Hina, that you can get to be an 8 cost very early in the game, so that's pretty impactful. But I think this deck is really cool, and it's really, again, very cool to see this be pretty relevant in our meta here in the English version, where it wasn't very present in the Japanese version in a similar meta. So again, this is Daniel's build here, and congratulations to their top 4 with the Star Deck 14 Luffy. Moving on to top 8, and I didn't really mention it, we did have, of the top 8, I believe we had 6 different leaders, right? We had Nami, Lucci, Star Deck 14 Luffy, Star Deck 13 Luffy, Zoro, and Yamato. So we did have 6 different leaders in the top 8, which I think is really cool to see. But obviously, Star Deck 13 Luffy, famous, infamous, however you want to feel about this deck. It's been pretty the same for a while. A lot of the time, this deck kind of wins and loses based on what it sees itself, and less so on what your opponent sees. Kuzan's been a pretty big staple in this deck now, being able to run 2 to 4 copies. Most are playing 4 right now, but you also will see that it was the most topping list or leader from this event too, with 10 whole copies across the top 32. So about a third of it, right? But most of the builds were running some different text with it. 45 cards I think are pretty cemented into this, right? We got to play all our 2-drops. Most people are playing 10 copies. I think everyone in this event, we're playing 10 2Ks of 4 Flampe's, 4 Hioris, 2 Makinos, your Luffy's, your Sabos. 5-drop Sabo from the Star Deck's been pretty close to a staple, I think, at this point too. And then some room for like some Ice Ages, some Finger Pistols if you want to. I didn't see 10-drop Kuzan, I think, as much, if at all, which is really interesting. And this is just kind of how it is. So again, like this is definitely a deck that you can make some small adjustments to your own playstyle, which I think is neat, or something that you're trying to counter. But this is going to be present for quite a while. It's still quite a terror, and just the fact that you're able to be a 9K leader really consistently still invalidates a lot of decks that are in this meta. But this is the build here, and congratulations to Tsumury for their finish with the Star Deck 13 Luffy. And then next up, we've got Zoro. So we only had 1, but they did end up getting into the top 8. And Zoro's been pretty popular with the addition of the new chopper from OP08, being able to use this card to kind of flood the board very early. Obviously, you're playing at a lot of low cost, so decks that run 4-cost Lucci, which is a lot since Rob Lucci's in the meta in general, they can get some good removal. But at the same time, if they don't see that removal very early or they don't get that good trade with you, this deck really can take off in a lot of ways. And we do have a bit of a high end of having 2 copies of Dragon, which is really good for getting some pressure. Sometimes you just need like a bigger rush card too. The fact that you get to put the Dawn on your leader just means you get the plus 1k on the Dragon as well. So an 8-drop 9k that gives out like 3 Dawn, if you want to think of it that way, is very good. Jombe finishes a lot of games. You punish a lot of 4-life leaders just because they have to take a lot of damage very early, and then pressuring them at 1 life and making their blockers useless is pretty strong for this deck too. As an end condition, we play Kid and Killer, one of the best rush cards in the game as well, and the rest of the package. So I think Zoro is still going to be here. I think it's going to top 1 and 2 for a bit. I think when we get to 8.5 though, it's going to have a little bit of a rougher time. Purple Luffy is going to be a little bit more present, I think, in that meta, and that you have a good matchup in that. But I think Blue Dofi just kind of does the same thing but better. You get a lot better tempo than them, and you get to pressure just as much. And I think this in general, like, it's going to be a little bit rougher for Zoro, but we'll see as well. It's been cool to see it come back for this meta, and we'll see how long it's here to stay. But this is the build here from Crustin, and congratulations to their finish with Zoro. And then Yamato, so we got a top 8 finish with this one. This is Starlax's version of it, and I said this at the beginning of the video, but I'll say it again. This was not a deck that was on my radar at all, and generally, like, once per meta, like, especially since I make so much tier list videos and stuff, it's unless I go like over every leader that exists in the game, I always got a comment like, oh, you forgot to put this one, where you put this one. And for this meta, it was definitely Yamato. This is a leader again. I think I got a lot of comments saying that they thought that this deck was stronger than I was putting it out to be, and generally my response every time is, oh, okay, if I'm wrong, prove it to me. And again, it's 2 metas in a row I've been proven on it. So Yamato topping, I think, is quite the triumph for it. I don't think it's still like consistently good in this meta yet, and we'll see if that's if we get any tops in the next couple weeks, since there are some more OP08 events. But you are a deck that can really punish a lot of like slower decks. This obviously is something that you can do some really good matchups into stuff like Nami, right? If you're playing against Rob Lucci and they have a slow start, Hody Jones just wins you a lot of matchups as well, being able to be at an 8k that additionally you can use your Yamato effect to make it a 10k, which is pretty crazy to try to end the game. And try to, we kind of have like this weird meta of like in between of like setup decks, and then like we have like Nami and like some slightly slower ones. But this deck can be really strong for this one. We didn't really get any new cards from OP08. The newest card we got is like this OP07 Demonic Aura, which is good, being able to get like an additional rest and something to use 2 Dawns, so then we can use our leader effect to put 2 more Dawn on something. But yeah, it's really cool to see this deck get a top 8 finish. I'd be really curious to see how it does for the rest of this meta that we have here, including going into OP08.5. I don't think any new cards get added to it. Maybe something from like the Katakuri deck, but I don't think anything from the Uta deck. But I'd be really interested to see how this deck does. So this is Starlax's build, and congratulations for their top with the top 8, including top 8 with Yamato. So next up, we've got 4 more decks. We're going to start off with Bonney here. So this is Ace's version of it, I think is how you pronounce it. Ace's version of it for Bonney. And in OP07, I had like a love-hate relationship with Bonney in the sense that one, at the beginning of the format, Red Purple Law was around, which is pretty tough to play around, especially since they could get around Basil Hawkins a lot of the time. But the other thing is that it sometimes is a little clunky. Green has like so many good top end cards and not so many good ways to find them consistently that you want to play all of them, right? And if you do that, there's a lot of cases where you just see them too much of the time. And if you do so, then you're going to have a hard time like countering out of some basic attacks. But I think Bonnie's been getting incrementally better over the last couple of like months or so. And I think that in the format that we're getting in 8.5, Bonnie's going to be pretty present. The newest card that we got for the deck was the Carrot, which came out in OP08. The on play when attacking skill is pretty nice, being able to stun a 7 cost. And for playing against more decks that are like either like Dofi or even like Purple Luffy, where they play out a lot of bodies that are 7 cost or less. This carrot being able to get a stun for it and then be kind of weird to like cost effective to remove means that I think this is going to get a lot more value moving forward. So I'm looking forward to seeing a little bit more of that. It's still present right now, but I do generally like Bonney a little bit more, but we're not seeing any Bonney in this build either, which is really interesting. We're also seeing like 3 copies of Hody. We're seeing 2 copies of Rosinante, 2 copies of the Kid, and then 2 copies of Zoro as well, which has also been a bit of an easy card for me to not sleeve up, just because I feel like there's so much Rob Lucci in the meta right now. They just need to like Ice Age it and then it goes away, right? A single Ice Age can just ruin this entire 9 cost that we played. So I do know that it's really good against like Black-Luffy and Nami, so I understand like why you put it in the deck too, but a lot of decks I think that are afraid of this card are adapting to ways to get rid of it, and it makes it a little bit harder to, you know, commit the 9 Dawn to play the Zoro and stuff. But again, I think Bonney's in a pretty good spot. It's pretty relevant right now. It's going to be relevant in a couple weeks too, and I'm going to continue to see it doing well in the next couple weeks. So this is the build here, and congratulations to Ace for their finish there. Next up, we've got Purple Luffy, and this is Naceo's version of it, and this deck's going to super change in OPO 8.5. There are so many good cards that you get out of the starter deck that it's going to be a shame, like looking at this list now and moving forward. Generally, when this deck was released up to now, this has just been a mash of just good purple cards that have existed. This is generically just the best purple ramp deck that exists right now, and so there's like a lot of just good high-end cards, right? We have the Kaido, right? We do have the Lin, which has been very good from OP08. This is probably one of the newest adds and that are effective for the deck. Being able to like either get a heal, be the fact that you're 9-drop 9k. Sometimes you can get rid of a sticky body like a Sabo or like a Kuzan. Being able to get that removal can be really impactful, which means you can get this around a little bit longer. And it's been a really good ad. So you can ramp up to this and you can heal from there, which is really cool. So I do like the ad from there. Sanji's been really good from OP07, and then really from there it's just like the same old package, right? We're using like the Poly to be able to get some more ramp and get rid of cards like Kuzan that hit the board. We have Magellan as well, being able to punish late game decks by delaying them maybe 1 turn from being able to play their big boss monster. And then the single copy of the 10-drop Luffy. Love this card. I think it's really great, and it's cool to see that still seeing some play. I think like 1 or 2 like 1 copy in this deck is great. And if you're playing red purple Luffy, you play a couple more. But the fact that this card is more searchable moving forward with the 4-drop Zoro is really nice too. So, but I would expect this deck to change a lot. The biggest card for me, I really cannot wait for this card. This card is so good for the deck. The Usohachi we're getting in the star decks. The fact that it's a sheep's horn on a 2k body that's also searchable. Like people were just struggling to play this card because it's really only against like a Sabo or something. But the fact that we have like an in-archetype sheep horn now is going to be really good for the deck. So I've been playing this deck a lot. I've been really looking forward to it, and looking forward to seeing how it does as well. But we got a couple more weeks of this build. I still think it's really relevant. It does have some polarizing matches, but it can be good, I think, into the top 5 pretty good. So this is the build here, though, and congratulations to Nace for their finish there. Next up, we've got Sabo. So another deck that kind of snuck into this top 32 that wasn't on my radar. Sabo, I've been doing a lot of reps with the new cards. I think we have like some 2 different honestly like a lot of different builds with this Sabo in general, and this has been I think a lot of people have been talking about this leader since Red Purple Law got banned, mostly because like the protection effect that you had from it, which is completely invalidated. It was invalidated by 2 things. 1, Hound Blaze. So when Sakazuki got banned, people were talking about this leader. And then when Red Purple Law came around, it also was able to circumvent your protection effect, right? So being able to be a 4-life leader against, and without an effect against a really aggressive deck, meant that it was really, really hard for this deck to be viable right now. But when we have so much like just hard removal in this game from stuff like Rob Lucci, from like Star Deck 14 Luffy, those kinds of decks, being able to have a leader that gives protection like this is going to be, I think, really crucial moving forward. But the only issue with Sabo in my mind is that you kind of have the worst color combination, or one of the worst in this game right now, in the fact that the removal that red uses is using power reduction, using cards like the Kirisu has like the minus power, right? We're not running a lot of cost or like power reductions, but it doesn't pair up really well with the idea that we're also having like all these cost reduction removal cards like Sakazuki, like T-Bone, like Jack, those kind of things. So I think there hasn't really been a card to kind of bridge the gap between making these like the color combination kind of work for it, but I hope they do eventually. But in the meantime, I think Sabo's in a good spot. I'm really looking forward to testing out some of the new stuff as well from the star decks. So two cards I have in my mind right now are the new gate can be really great. The fact that you can give a Dawn to your leader on 7 means that you can use your leader effect to protect this new gate, and then also you can get rid of a 5k power or less with it, which is great. And then also the Hina as well. This is obviously a really good card in the star deck 14 Luffy, but the fact that you're able to use this like on the turn you play it, you can use it to put a Dawn underneath your leader. You protect this from removal, and then you get a 4-drop 6k for the rest of the game that you're able to use to help give you more cards into like just extend your plays and get that 1 Dawn in your leader every turn. So because there's always like the 1-drop Namis and stuff where they seem good, right? The fact that you can play this and get a free Dawn underneath your leader every turn is good, but it's so removable and so hard to get value with. So having that Hina that is already under the protection of your Sabo leader effect, I think is good here. So it's really cool though. I really am happy to see this top. I know a lot of people were excited to see it. You obviously still can take advantage of Moria, but you know, your Morias are not as strong as others for this one. Dragon being great is just, it's a great rush card too. And I don't know, it's really exciting. I love this deck and Garp as well. I think both of them are really unique leaders that have some just honestly bonkers effects. And we're just kind of waiting for the card pool to get to a spot where you can kind of overcome the fact that there's not a lot of synergy with it at times, but I think it's really cool. So this is Jack's version of the build. Congratulations for their finish with Sabo. And then to wrap it up, we've got Pudding. This is Triss's version of the deck. At the beginning of OP08, I was really excited for this deck. I thought it was going to be pretty viable. I think when we're now a month plus out of OP08, I think this deck is generally just okay. It will get the top every once in a while, but not consistently. It's kind of wild, right? When you read all the cards, right, you look at this leader, right? This card says you get to ramp every turn, which is pretty insane. You get this 10-drop Linlin, which is additionally pretty insane, right? The fact that you're able to use this to get that like Dawn minus, or not Dawn minus, the life minus from them is just a super good effect. And but at the same time, you just don't get to sometimes you don't get enough bodies on board to really make it worth it, which is kind of tough. But I do think this deck is still very viable. The fact that you also get to play this card is pretty insane for the deck for consistency. And I know a lot of other decks would love to be able to play this, but it is restricted to Big Mom and Animal Kingdom Pirates. And I think this deck is good though. I am really happy to see that it did get a top here. It is a little bit linear on finding the specific pieces you need, but being able to, again, get to 10 as fast as you can, like the double ramp can get hit really, really hard, and then you get a lot of great effects with it. So happy to see it doing well, and congratulations to Triss for their finish with the Pudding. So that's really going to be it for us. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, if you guys want any of the deck lists, make sure to check out my website, Eggman Events, in the description. And we're going to continue to get more events, more coverage, and a lot more deck lists in the future as well. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all next time.